So we're going to talk about what are the most sensitive areas to touch a man. And let's dive into this. Now, initially, I thought about doing a recording video from the sexual perspective regarding physical touch. Sure, we could talk about how a man likes to be touched physically, whether it's behind the ear, the elbow, or some more sensitive spots below the belt line. But I thought it'd be more important to talk about where to touch a man from an emotional perspective, where men are most sensitive today. Because when it comes to the reality of things, while physical intimacy is certainly an important part of a relationship, and it certainly can enhance a relationship. And in many cases, it's the decision-making process to a relationship. Let me repeat that. Physical intimacy is the decision-making process to a relationship. Now, you might be thinking otherwise, but let me get into that for a second. And I am going to talk about the emotional places to touch a man that will hopefully engage in a more harmonious, more emotionally intimate relationship with a man. So, the reason why I wanted to share really quickly about the physical intimacy is the reality is physical. Certainly, if you're in the dating marketplace today and you're over 40 years old, maybe you're in midlife, as I always say, which is after baby making years and before retirement. Many of us certainly want a partnership type based relationship, a life mate, a teammate in our lives. And one of the functions of a life mate is having somebody you can have regular physical intimacy in a monogamous exclusive container. So it's part of the relationship process. Now, I know many of you get frustrated because it seems like men have sex on the brain. But the reality is physical intimacy is a gateway to closer intimacy. But intimacy isn't just physical. It's emotional as well. And there's certain areas that are very sensitive to a man. And we're going to share three particular ones that are being talked about in the dating universe on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube shorts and whatnot. But we're going to also, which is above the waterline, but we're going to go deeper below the waterline in a second. I happen to have a very dear female friend in my life. I actually met her almost 20 years ago on a dating app. And while it never turned into a romantic relationship, we never kissed or anything like that, we become dear friends with one another. And we know so much about each other's lives. And we share stories about the people in our lives because in a way, she's my confidant, my therapist, if you will. And we've processed a lot of things together. Why am I sharing this with you? The other day, she was sharing about a dear friend of hers, a male friend, who went through a divorce some years ago. But at the same time, he lost his, he was in the mortgage industry. And I don't know if many of you remember back in 2006, 8, or 9, the mortgage crisis, and he lost his high-end corporate job. Now, I can relate to that because I used to be in the insurance business. And he's had to rebuild his life since then. And again, I can relate to that. And he was in a relationship with a woman for 3 years, and she just didn't feel satisfied in the relationship. Now, I don't know the particulars of why she didn't feel satisfied, but she ended the relationship. And he was devastated. He was deeply in love with this person. He cared for her. He wanted to go all in. And he found out that she's recently connected with a man. And it's quite possible because of financial reasons. She's attracted to this man for his financial wealth. And he's emotionally devastated by this. And my friend was sharing the story with me. And it made me think of the sensitive areas that men deal with. And we're about to share one of those that relates to this story as well. So there are a lot of videos out on TikTok and Instagram talking about the 666s that women are looking for, the 666s. Now, I'm not talking about the movie The Omen, okay? Please forgive me, I don't even want to go down that road from a biblical perspective. But these 3 sixes seem to be what's on the surface or above the waterline that a lot of people women are searching for in relationship. And at the same time, these are very sensitive subjects to men. So the first 6 happens to be 6 foot or taller, 6 foot or taller. What this is actually relating to is a man's height, okay? Now, given that the significant population of men, I think 85% of men are under 6 foot tall, and it seems like a majority of women are seeking that man who's over 6 foot tall. A man's height can be a very sensitive subject, if especially since there seems to be a lot of rejection for men who are under 6 foot tall. So this is a very sensitive subject to a lot of men, not all men, certainly those men that are much taller. I thank my mom and daddy that I'm 6'2". And I only say that because I'm not rejected for that. I certainly couldn't imagine what it might feel like to be a man who's 5'8" and who might not seem very attractive to the female population because of his height. Now, it's fascinating to me. I had one woman client that I'd worked with years ago who happened to be 5'2". And she said to me, Jonathan, I can't be with a man who's under 6'2". I need a man who's 6'2". I feel protected by a man who's over 6 foot tall. And I said, that's quite fascinating, given that you're 5'2". Well, she says, I feel protected when I'm with a taller man. Now, I shared with her I shared with her personally that I happen to be 6'2" and I couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag. I've never gotten a fight before. I don't know if I could ever physically protect someone if we were in a dangerous situation. So just because someone might be of that height doesn't necessarily mean that they're capable of that. But was also, I shared with her, is I don't know if she knew a famous martial artist by the name of Bruce Lee or even Jackie Chan, okay? Two famous martial artists that could kick the crap out of 20 guys all at once. And yet they probably are barely 5'7", 5'8". I don't know the exact height of these men. So height is an area that's very sensitive to men. Now, the next 6 in the 666 happens to be 6 figures, money. Okay. This can be a very sensitive subject to men. Now, given here in the United States that roughly, I believe 80% of the population makes less than 6 figures or $100,000 a year, and given also that a significant percentage of the population don't have more than 3 months savings in the bank to support themselves. And certainly a lot of men in midlife have gone through a financial crisis, divorce, separating assets. They might have lost their jobs, like the case where I shared with the friend. And I know this personally and very intimately, that a lot of men are struggling in this area. A lot of women are struggling in this area as well. And this can be a very sensitive subject, particularly because a lot of men in midlife might even have a professional identity crisis related to their profession. But they feel like all it is that they have to work just to survive, and they're not feeling a sense of fulfillment in their life. And so this is a very sensitive subject that a lot of men are dealing with right now. And yet, don't these men deserve relationships? Don't the women who are in the same boat deserve relationships? By the way, I know sensitive area for women tends to be around looks or body type. I mean, we can talk about the sensitive areas when it comes to a woman, the sensitive areas that come to a man, but one in particular, because men are traditionally expected to be the provider and the protectors. And that if we can't fulfill that role, then you are not worthy enough of a relationship. I want you to think about this from an emotional perspective. If you're not able to financially take care of another person, it's literally the zeitgeist here in our society is you are not worthy of a relationship. Basic survival, just taking care of oneself is a challenge. Many of you ladies know this. So it's understandable that a man can feel exactly the same way. And yet, does that preclude them from deserving of being in a relationship? See, isn't it sad that these are the kind of things that we hyper focus on instead of the more deeper areas, which I'm going to cover in just a minute. So bear with me. So we just had the first 2 6s. 6 being over 6 foot tall, the second 6 over 6 figures. And now we're going to talk about the third 6, which is penis size. Again, what's being discussed are the 666s. 6 foot or taller, 6 figures or greater, or 6-inch penis size or longer. This is what these are the videos that are being talked about in TikTok and Instagram and Facebook Shorts. But this goes deeper than a penis size. Although penis size, I was in a workshop with a group of men. This was almost 17 years ago. I'll be candid with you all. We were 50 men. This was a spiritual retreat, if you will. And we had to take off our clothes, basically to see that we all are the same. We have a penis. And it was very uncomfortable. This was a very uncomfortable experience. And I got to tell you, there were some guys that had a lingam that could go down to the floor. And I felt intimidated by that. And then there were some men that literally had this size. And you had no idea the emotional trauma these men were experiencing because they had a very small penis. Penis size is a very sensitive subject. And while I believe the average size of penis is 5.5 inches, I don't know. I believe that's what it is out in the with the average person. This can be a very sensitive subject, particularly also from our capacity of sexual performance. I didn't want to have a sexual conversation based on this video, but I think it's critically important to recognize that, and ladies, you certainly have your own concerns about, I mean, I've watched so many videos about women and their vaginas and everything that can feel very emotionally traumatic if there's judgment around that. And so when it comes to human pair bonding, seems to be the 3 most important things a lot of people are talking about, which is certainly above the waterline. But I want to go below the surface. And let's talk about insecure attachment style. If you're not familiar with these 3 books, Attached by Amir Levine, Rachel Heller, Learning Love by Thais Gibson, and certainly Dr. Stan Tatkin, Wired for Love. All the books I recommend are listed below. I think what's more critically important that men and women are sensitive to centers around our capacity to attach to another human being, particularly men who are avoidant and men who are anxious. And I can speak personally from the anxious perspective because what I'm about to share is a very sensitive subject. And I'm sure you can relate to this as well, depending on if you're familiar with what's your attachment style. Now, what we're talking about is how we attach to another human being from a either secure perspective or an insecure perspective. Now, I will tell you that out in the coaching world, they will have you believe that 50% of the population has a secure attachment style. I think that is bullshit. I don't buy that. I really don't believe that half of the population has a secure attachment style, particularly in the dating marketplace. And I believe part of that is also they haven't studied the emotional effects of going through a divorce or a significant breakup of a treasured relationship, how the unraveling of the tapestry of your life with another can deeply affect you emotionally. Many of you know I was in a significant relationship that ended over a year ago. And I can tell you there is an emotional ramification of when a treasured relationship, and ladies, you can most likely identify with this. When you have a very treasured relationship that ends, it can cause us to feel insecure about ourselves. And so within the avoidant attachment style, if you've ever experienced a man who's avoidant, they're fearful of commitment. They fear intimacy. They fear being vulnerable. And and by the way, this is the challenge in human pair bonding because everybody wants companionship to some degree. Most everybody does. Everybody wants some level of connection with another human being. We want that physical touch, that sexual intimacy, but the capacity to go beyond that becomes very challenged. very challenged, particularly if you have deep childhood wounds that cause you to be fearful of commitment, fearful of intimacy, fearful of being vulnerable. And that's the avoidant person attachment style. What about those of us that are anxious? We fear not being lovable for commitment. We fear that vulnerability will scare someone away, which is why many of us wear duct tape over our mouths. We're afraid to speak our truth, afraid to speak up for our needs and our wants in relationship because it's going to scare someone away. And many of us, and by the way, this is something I'm sharing with you this personally. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of awareness to push past these fears. And unless someone is doing deep introspective work, unless they're examining their fears and insecurities, it's going to make them very sensitive to a significant relationship. You see, the reality is most people can have surface level relationships. What I mean by surface level, they can agree to monogamy, they can agree to exclusivity, but anything deeper into teammate, or more importantly, all in relationships, all in relationships. I'm an advocate for life partnership-based dating. I'm an advocate for intentional dating. By the way, one of the things I teach in my private coaching is how to vet for compatibility. And by the way, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to teach you how to vet, how to more importantly be discerning. Because when you are more discerning, your intuition begins to drive the bus for you instead of our broken dating narrative that we're experiencing today. And let me be very clear. Our current dating process, if you will, is very broken on so many levels. This is why I'm here to encourage. I'm not here to teach you the little techniques and text a guy this to get him to say that. I'm here to encourage personal development, self-help, and spiritual work as a pathway to emotional freedom. If you haven't read the book, The Hoffman Process, this is a deep dive into healing your childhood wounds and adult traumas that might cause you to be an avoidant or anxious attachment style, and to actually reach that place of self-love. In fact, folks, many of you know I wrote a book, and there's a link below to get a copy of the book. It's my simple version of self-love. It's a journey of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. The link below to get a copy of my book. I'm here to encourage that this isn't about whether or not you find a life partner. Even though I'm a dating and relationship coach, most importantly, I'm an empowerment coach. I'm here to encourage everyone to begin to understand who they are, what they really want, what their motives are, to really teach you how to assess another human being, to actually how to get to know another human being beyond the surface level of the 666 that we just talked about, to go deeper, to ask those tougher questions early on so you don't find yourself attached to the wrong person. Is this sinking in, folks? Is this resonating with you? If it is, please let me know. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. And if you found value in this video, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And also hit the notification bell on your phone as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery, where you can have direct access to me on a regular basis for just a few dollars a month. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, and all the books I recommend are listed below. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box on your screen. Write the word question and post the question there after. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box. All of the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. There's a picture of him right there. It's one of my favorite pictures of him. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. And his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute, and we give scholarships to coaching as well. All right. And our goal today is $50. So let's get some love. If 25 of you just donated $2, we would get to that goal. All right. If you have a question, post that question in the chat box. RM Bell just wrote, I dated a cop for a minute. His penis was so small, I won't lie. I was a bit shocked. However, his personality and insecurity he generated in me was a turnoff. Well, it's quite possible that that could be slightly directed to an insecurity within him. When we feel insecure about ourselves, it's natural to project that insecurity onto others. It's a very common thing that happens. And I'm saddened that he treated you that way. I wished it was slightly different in this particular case, but I can certainly understand why he might have operated that way. So RM, thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate it. J10 says, question, is it too much to ask for a man with no kids at 33? I don't want any. So I would venture to say there are a lot of people that are in their I know a lot of men in their mid 30s who do not have children. So when you say is it too much? Is it too much to ask for? Why? I'm curious why you framed it that way. Is it too much to ask for? There's a sensitivity there in the way you frame that question. Now, it's certainly okay to say, I don't want a man, I don't want any children. It's certainly okay to say, I want to be in a relationship that doesn't want children, or with a man who doesn't want children. But is it too much to ask for? There's a judgment in the way that's framed. So I'm just inviting you to look at that and just simply say, I know what I want. I'd like to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want children or doesn't have children. And by the way, there are plenty of people that fit that narrative. I don't think you have to worry about that one at all. Jerry Murray says, you said there was 6 in the list. No, I said the 3 6s, 666. Okay. By the way, these are what men are sensitive to: their height, their bank account, and their penis size, which is the women who are all the TikTok videos talking about a man who's over 6 foot tall, more than 6 figures in his bank, and more than 6-inch penis. That's what I was referring to. Carolyn wants to know, is there audiobooks for Jonathan books? Yes, in the link below under Jonathan Recommend Books, there are links to all of them. My book is even on audio. So yes, that's the case. Okay. How can I donate? There's a little $ in the chat box. There's a little $ with super sticker, super chat. Okay. There's a little $ somewhere in the chat box. Let me keep going here. Melissa says, I've learned that avoidants are actually psychopaths. Clinically speaking, there isn't an avoidant attachment style. It's just what psychologists are saying. Well, attachment theory is roughly about 50 years in the making as far as understanding. I do believe that the theory holds water. I think to some degree we're all sociopaths or psychopaths to some degree. Now, I'm being tongue-in-cheek. What I mean to say is I do believe human beings can be very myopic and self-centric in many cases, but I do subscribe to attachment style theory, and I do believe avoidants oftentimes struggle with a fear of commitment, a fear of intimacy, and a fear of being vulnerable. I do believe that about avoidance, so I subscribe to that. CJ Miller just said, this is our first time on a live. Grateful for Jonathan. Thank you all. Thank you so much, CJ. I appreciate that as well. Let's keep going here. All right, J10. I don't think I should settle with a man who I'm not sexually attracted to. I don't think it grows over time. Am I wrong for this? That's my experience. I've been told it's shallow. Well, okay, this is a great question. because I don't believe you're shallow. Let me just be very clear. I think feeling attraction for another human being on a physical, sexual, emotional level is rather important for a success of a relationship. Now, I've heard that men tend to fall in love through their eyes, or what that means is they're attracted to people through their eyes, and women fall in love between the ears. Now, what that means is you become attracted to a person by who they are and what they say. So I do believe that there are women who begin to find a man who they might not be their type more attractive. And I want to illustrate this with a story, J10. So I did something known as the Hoffman process. Okay. This is the book. Okay. This is a deep dive into healing childhood wounds and adult traumas. Now, this is the book. I did the 8-day retreat up in Napa. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this workshop, mine happened to be 20 men and 19 women. 20 men were there working on their stuff, okay? And you're not allowed to share what you do for a living until the second to the last day, okay? When you get up and share publicly what you do. Now, when I shared I was a dating or relationship coach that evening at the jacuzzi, and it was a big, gigantic jacuzzi that could house 25, 30 people. One of the women came up to me and said, Jonathan, I have something to share with you. She goes, when I came here, I scouted the room and I noticed that there were 2 men I was attracted to. One of them was you. And she was sharing this with me and I felt very flattered. And the other guy looked like the Marlboro Man, very rugged, tattoos. He was a good looking guy, very, very alpha male looking. And the rest of men ranged from age 29 to 80, okay? Mostly people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, okay? She said, after getting to know each one of these men on an emotional, sensitive level, she said, I would date every man here. What that meant to me was, while her type was the big alpha looking type of guys, when she got to know each man's heart, they became more attractive to her. So J10, it's quite possible that when you give a guy a chance on an emotional level, you might find him more attractive. I always say, so long as they don't have a beer gut the size of Texas and they're missing all their teeth, and I'm being tongue in cheek when I say this, if he's a good guy and you feel some sort of emotional connection, give that guy 3 dates if he's not your type. That is my suggestion. And if you still don't feel it after 3 dates, then you are not shallow for not wanting to engage in someone that you don't feel that sense of attraction or chemistry or sexual attraction. So that was a great question. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Linda says, one of Shakespeare's sonnets, I know it by heart. English literature, believe it or not, the boys loved it. Oh, I don't know what 2 we're talking about. Katerina says, I dated a fearful avoidant. He was not on the DSM scale, psycho. He was amazing man with a scared little boy inside who been taught to stuff his feelings by his ignorant father. Whether it's a man or woman, whether they are fearful or avoidant or dismissive avoidant, we have a significant population of singles out in the dating marketplace that were experienced deep emotional wounds from their childhood. They might have been subjugated to physical abuse, emotional abuse, or it could have just been garden variety protectiveness of a parent. Let me repeat that. Garden variety protectiveness of a parent, from a parent, could cause their children to end up with either an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style. That has nothing to do, as Katerina says, the DSM scale of being psychopath, sociopath, or anything like that. Although I do believe most humans are rather self-centric because they have an underdeveloped ego that runs the show for them. Now, with that said, I believe that she's absolutely right. In this particular case, he was an amazing man with a scared little boy inside who had been taught to stuff his feelings by his ignorant father. Most of us are the byproduct of baby boom parents. Most of us here watching this are either the byproduct of a baby boom parent, maybe some of you are byproduct of Gen X parents, but most of you are byproduct. And the baby boom generation came from the Depression, came from scarcity, came from fear, came from war. You know, there was a lot of emotional trauma that's been passed on to us. And we are one of the first generations that are leaning into personal development, self-help, and spiritual work and therapy as a way to heal from our childhood wounds. So great point. Thank you, Katerina. Let's get. Hey, I want to give props to CJ Miller for the $5 super sticker. That means we have $45 more to go. If 20 of you just donated $2, we would get there really fast. So thank you so much. Crystal Week says, in my own healing, I went through an avoidant, then anxious. And now that I'm healed, I'm secure. I fully believe in the styles because I've lived them myself. You know, the tail of the tape will be, Crystal, when you're actually in a relationship with a man and you can actually feel secure in that. So I do believe that we still have a default of a love attachment style, but the real test is when you're in a relationship. So you said, I fully believe in those styles. I've lived myself. You think you're secure, but it'd be interesting to see what happens when you're in your next relationship, unless you're already in a relationship and you can clearly say you feel like this is a safe relationship. If that's the case, please share it with us. But the tail of the tape will be when you're actually in a relationship. Okay. By the way, if anyone wants to join me on the hot seat, want to join me live, ask me a question right now. I just post a link right now. Join me live. Okay. It'd be fun to have a chat with somebody live. All right. All right. Oh, Charity has just asked a question. I wrote a guy a love letter expressing my feelings for him. He didn't reply me back. However, he's always flirting with me. What do I do next? I really like him. So, first off, I just want to acknowledge the bravery it took to write a love letter. That is a very beautiful thing. Over the years, I've gotten letters from many of you dropping the hanky, so to speak. So to the bravery of writing a love letter to someone, I just want to acknowledge that. Now, he didn't reply, okay, but he's flirting with you. I suspect the reason why he didn't reply is he's probably not capable of a serious relationship. And yet he most likely wants some level of companionship, connection, or sex, possibly with you if he's flirting with you. If you're not familiar with my chart about the 3 men actively dating, this is not a fact. It's merely an opinion. Now, I say 20% of the population are users. They seek short-term game. They're love bombers. They're players. They're gold diggers. They're entitled, selfish people, only care about themselves. Now, I say the next batch, 60% are spenders. They seek companionship, connection, and sex. No direction, uncertain, fearful, usually have a dysfunctional life. They want to spend time with you as a placeholder. And then lastly are the grower builders, okay? 20%. And by the way, these aren't exact numbers. They seek long-term commitment. They're emotional grown-up. They have good relationship skills. They have their act together. If this man were an emotional grown-up, he most likely would have appreciated the love letter and he would have initiated something more substantial with you if he was a grower builder and if he was a grower builder who genuinely cared for you. I suspect his flirting is just to satisfy his own needs. He's in that selfish or unconscious category. I don't think he's a user because he would have just tried to have sex with you and dumped you. But I would venture to say that he is what's known as a spender. Now, the problem is, Charity, you women see these spenders and go, I can change them into a grower builder. Ladies, you cannot change a spender to a grower builder unless he's on the tail end of being a spender, meaning he's about to step into his empowerment, his desire for teammate, and his desire for an all-in relationship. And it's hard to tell based on what you shared with me in that particular case. Hey, I just want to give Annette Paul some props for the $20 super sticker. Thank you for the love. And Sadie for the $2 super sticker. Hey, if 12 more of you just donated $2, we would get to our goal tonight. So thank you so much. All right. Here's a personal question from Caroline. Jonathan, why are you still single? You're smart and very good looking. I am going to answer this question. First and foremost, I was in a significant relationship that actually ended about a year ago. And I was deeply in love with this person. I deeply cared for this person. I was all in. And unfortunately, she didn't reach the same place. That happens, okay? Not everybody is at the same place. She had a different life vision than my life vision, okay? And for the past year, I have been going through the grieving process. And it's very much when a treasured relationship ends. I said this earlier in the broadcast, when a treasured relationship ends, it is very much like a death. We go through a grieving process. And my grieving process has led me to so many revelations about who I am and what I really want in a life mate. And yet, much like every one of you on here, you have great qualities. You're good people. I believe most people are good people. I think most people are desirous of a significant connection. I don't think everybody is capable of that. I believe just because you desire a connection with another human being doesn't mean you're capable of life partnership relationships. So with that said, I'm in the same boat as all of you. I'm in midlife. I get rejected for a lot of different reasons by some women. I will be candid with you. I'm not looking for a unicorn, but it'll most likely take a unicorn to appreciate me. I am not the easiest person to be in relationship with. I am obsessed with personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. My passions happen to be philosophy and psychology. I don't care to travel and touch my finger on the Eiffel Tower, or, I don't care about travel. I don't care so much about pickleball or paddle or stand-up paddleboard. I'm a person who's more interested in the inner journey of life. I'm more interested in being introspective. And I'm not everyone's cup of tea. A lot of people want, the more physical aspect. Don't get me, when I say physical, I'm talking about the doing in relationship, and I'm more interested in the being. So with that said, I'm in the same boat as everyone else. The dating marketplace is now ruled by online dating, which is a marginalized way of connecting with people. This is why now I've just recently joined the Center for Spiritual Living that happens to have even though it's I'm going to call it a church, but it doesn't feel like a church, in the city I live in, which is bordering Torrance and Redondo Beach, California. And my hope is to connect with someone in real life. I not to suggest that I'm discounting online dating, but I also believe the online dating world, algorithms won't put the best people up. I'm sorry if I'm putting myself, that's an egocentric way of saying something. Okay, it's a judgment. But I appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much for complimenting me. That I do appreciate. But I'm in the same boat as you. I understand the emotional, traumatic effects of losing a treasured relationship and rebuilding. And I'm still on a journey of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work to heal up that little kid inside of me who doesn't believe he's worthy for love. I have... it saddens me to admit this, but I still have a core wound that is in the healing. It's on the mend. And I know how many of you can relate to that at a real core level. So I don't like the question, why are you still single? That implies that there's something wrong with me almost. And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just on a journey to do the best I can, be in integrity with myself. And like I said, I'm not looking for a unicorn, but it's going to take a unicorn to appreciate me. I have a quote that says that. Hey, Debbie's in the house. Thank you for the love. I appreciate it. It's raining great men. It's raining great women. It's raining great men. It's raining. RM Bell's just donated. Well, then let's make our goal $100 today. Thank you so much for the love. All in, baby. All in. Yes, I believe in all in relationships. We have to go outside of our comfort zones. I'm actually hosting a group therapy workshop for 6 of my closest friends. And the title is centered around going outside of our comfort zones. One of which for me is to put myself out in the physical world. I have this internet-based presence. Now it's time to be seen. And I want you to think about this. The first principle of the love scale, if you will, this is a new book I'm writing, is to remove the blocks so you can be seen by single eligible people, to remove those emotional blocks through self-awareness, to be seen by the right person. And that's what my coaching is all about, is about removing those blocks. All right, J10 is back in the house. How do I non-verbally let men know in public that it's okay to approach and talk? I'm an introvert, so I don't always look inviting. I do think that I always look put together and not a mess. Excuse my slurping, by the way. You know, I'm not a flirt expert, but they say give a person a 6-second look. That's a lot of time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a lot of time to look at someone and then turn away and then look back. You know, I think you can approach men. That's one option. You can approach men and just say hi. Just recognize that just like men don't know if you're single, you might be approaching a man. You don't know if he's single or in a relationship with somebody. How do you become more inviting? Be in spaces where you can engage with people. As I shared with you all, I went to the Center for Spiritual Living, and afterwards people congregated outside and you could easily walk up to anybody and talk to them. There was an inviting, open environment. I would suggest putting yourself in environments where you can be around people, where you can engage in conversation. If someone seems interesting to you, engage in a conversation with them. It's not like you're asking them out on a date. I would practice engaging in conversations with people. That's a good start anyway. J10, I hope that helps. CJ Miller wants to say, when a treasured relationship ends, that really resonates. I know that feeling. Yes, many of you have either gone through a divorce, which, as I said earlier, is the unraveling of the tapestry of your life with another human being, or a significant relationship at the end where you genuinely, deeply cared for another person. You were deeply, maybe even attached to that person. And there is an emotional loss there. You know, when Jerry Maguire, said, "You complete me," it's because there was a hole inside of him. Now, I'm not big on someone else completing you, but I can understand that when someone leaves, folks, I lost a child. I have a gigantic hole in my heart that no person can fill. I have to fill that up with my own self-love. And that's my invitation for everyone. Annette Paul wants to say that what a great idea. The goal is to be seen. That's what this is all about. You know, coming back to that question, why are you single? I put myself I'm doing my best to physically now. I've done it by the internet. I have a presence out on the internet, but now and I've got Facebook and Instagram and all these things, and certainly YouTube, but I'm putting myself in environments to where you can be seen, where you can connect with people. outside of the virtual world. That's folks, if you want to meet your Mr. Right, or if you're a man watching, you want to meet your Miss Right, you have to be seen by single eligible people. As TJ Miller says, meeting people in real life is a wonderful old school way to connect. I feel repelled by the online dating. Now, online dating is a spoke in the wheel. Regina says, met a man at a bar. We had fun. We communicated all week. Then we met for dinner. I sent a message the day after about needing an additional kiss. He ignored what I said and did respond, but a different topic. Well, it's hard to say, but I suspect that he felt uncomfortable because he didn't want to go there. He just didn't want to go there. So he changed the topic. My question is, what are you going to do about this? First off, Regina, what are you feeling based on his response or lack of response? What are you feeling? And what do you choose to do about this? That's what I'd like to know next. So please respond. Carolyn wants to say, thank you for your answer, Jonathan. I'm a female version of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Beach Lover says, the single people don't knock on my door. You know, it's funny. Unless some woman decides to burglarize my house, you know, I work from home. It's not like I'm in environments to be seen. You have to be seen. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you, the online dating world is pathetic. The women, and I'm going to listen, I'm pointing the finger at you ladies right now. I view hundreds of profiles a day. 99 out of 100 are so poorly done. And guess what? You're not the exception. You're the rule. Many of you are doing such a weak, God, should I even say, pathetic job of putting yourself out there to be seen. And then you wonder why it's so dysfunctional. If men and women treated this like they were trying to get $1 million salary job, they treated it that way. God, I'm spitting. They might have better results. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. RM Bell says, sometimes I think of Jonathan on a Friday night and envision him at a jazz bar with a little cocktail checking the scene. I've got my martini glass and I'm checking her scotch and I'm checking it out. That is so funny. Thank you so much. Regina wants to come back and say, I think my own issue came out because I just ignored him. I felt if he ignored me, why should I talk further to be ignored? Also thought maybe he wasn't attracted to me. So, but you didn't share with me what you felt. I know you felt ignored, but what emotion did you feel when you felt ignored? Most likely discounted is my guess. You felt discounted. And so you chose not to respond. You could have been curious and simply said, hey, I'm curious. How did you feel about my question? You could have done that. Lives. I want to thank Spiritual Alignment, or excuse me, Janelle, Beach Lover, Debbie. I want to thank everyone that donated today. CJ Miller, RM, Sharon, Katerina, Sadie, J10, Power of Chi, Gigi, Sadie, everyone, Stephanie, thanks everyone for posting. I really appreciate the love. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful day. Bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.